Well, yeah, and actually I was thinking about you this morning. You're welcome. I was thinking,
Wasn't it
well,
right on River Walk?
you know, I mean, I don't, to me, I don't care at all, even when I brought it up, obviously, it's just that, I don't want, I hate to fuss.
We would have checked it again, but before we handed it out this morning, we did part of my
I just always.
Oh, I know, no, I wouldn't say that on here, it's
Right there.
better safe than sorry.
all pretty, yeah. I guess I just clarifying why I even care.
Something that's really creative.
That's exactly why I care.
I'll see if I can find it. Thank you.
Good morning. We were at a late night last night. Yeah.
Stand up.
It was lovely, and our Babs got lifetime.
She should.
Oh, some sort of a lifetime volunteer honor.
She was on the original.
Yeah. She is a pain in people's sides. Yeah.
She's a rabble rouser, but she's never a pain.
Oh, well, when she hounds you for money, she is, but that's what I love.
Oh, I'm safe. I don't have money. Okay, now I know.
Let's take a minute, a couple of cups.
And watch this, and if you grab coffee, that lid doesn't look like it's on right. So,
Well, I'll just go ahead and dump it out like I always do. I mean, that's what I do at home. Then I end up spending an hour cleaning up the beds.
that's funny. Well, I'm just saying.
It doesn't look good. I think it
Make sure that's out of
Yes, yes, sir.
looks like it's cross-threaded.
No, we have all that, we have right.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Because I know you go through that coffee. I'm,
She's good.
She's good.
I don't know if she's good or not. The coffee's good.
I still haven't proven myself. Well done.
Oh, God.
Look, it's Eric.
I just say
Eric's in Nashville.
Good morning, we're gonna call our meeting to order.
Are you in Nashville? You can't hear me? Yes.
Can you hear us now?
Can you hear us, Eric?
Yeah, I can, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Guess you were on mute a minute ago.
That's if you have cell phones, to please turn them off at this time. We'll stand and have prayer by a pledge of allegiance by Council Member Latham and prayer by Council Member Reed.
Did you say later?
If you would like to pray with us, would you please remain standing? Dear God of us all, we thank you for this day, a day that you have made, a day that we shall all rejoice and be glad in. We're thankful this morning for each other. We're thankful for the city of Madison. We're thankful for the agenda that you have set before us. We ask you to give us wisdom, knowledge, and understanding to make decisions on behalf of the city of Madison. Amen.
Amen. Before we get started, we'd like for Monica, if she would, to come up front.
I think it is, Monica.
The city of Madison received the support from the Boys and Girls Club. Last evening, Monica and Patty couldn't be there, but they want to know they appreciate all the hard work you have put through.
Yeah.
Since this is just a work session, we're going to, Jennifer probably has to get back to work, so we're going to ask her if she would to go ahead and present her report to us first this morning.
Well, thank you, Mayor and Council. Can you all hear me okay? Okay, excellent. Well, as you mentioned, just for the public, my name is Jennifer Rosa, and I'm the Executive Director of the Madison-Morgan County Convention and Visitors Bureau. I've been in that position for 2 years. And I know you all have a site visit today, so it's just going to kind of touch on the highlights.
Excuse me, you may want to leave a little
little
further
closer?
up so people there can hear you.
Okay.
We can hear you, but sometimes they can't up there, Jennifer.
Okay, so hopefully this helps. You can kind of hear feedback. So, okay. So the Madison Morgan Convention and Visitors Bureau, it's a destination marketing organization for the city of Madison and Morgan County, and our work, of course, is led by a 9-member board. 2 of those board members are appointed by the city of Madison. So our chair, Karen Weibel, is a city-appointed board member, as well as Charles Marvel, who was recently appointed by the city of Madison just a couple months ago to join our board. And I also just wanted to touch very quickly on our team, because I feel like a lot of people know the names of our board, but maybe aren't as familiar with our staff. So of course there's myself and our newly hired marketing communications specialist. She just started last month, Sarah Weibel, and we really lead the marketing and promotions. And then our Welcome Center staff. So a big part of our mission is to keep that Welcome Center open and welcoming visitors here in Madison 360 days a year. And that's really done by our staff of 5 amazing team members led by Jeannie Clark. And they just do an amazing job welcoming tourists and advocating on tourism and, you know, just sharing all the wonderful things that there are to do here, keeping our center open and clean and welcoming. And I think they're really the ones that help drive home that mission to everyday visitors that come in for our CVB, which is to inspire tourists to come, to stay, and take part in the local tourism economy. And that's really what our mission is. It's to support tourism here to Madison and Morgan County. And as we know, tourism has had a roller coaster for a while, so I kind of wanted to look a little bit at tourism. And in the tourism industry, we really look at 2019, you know, pre-pandemic. That's our baseline. That's where everybody's working to get back to. So what did tourism look like in 2019? So we'll just start with our Welcome Center, you know, right here in the heart of Madison, open 360 days a year, welcoming almost 14,000 visitors, and on TripAdvisor, #1 of 15 things to do in Madison. And really proud of our 5 out of 5 bubbles rating on TripAdvisor. The Georgia Department of Economic Development studies tourism because tourism, of course, is big business in Georgia. And one of the great resources that they have that they track for us in every county in Georgia is what is that impact of direct tourism spending in every county in Georgia. And here in Morgan County, it's over $56 million. So what does that mean to our local people? That means that they have almost $600 in state and local tax savings per household pre-pandemic. It's 466 jobs in travel and hospitality here in Madison. And then, of course, the crazy year, 2020, and the pandemic. So we went from being open 360 days to 253. We had to shut down, just like the world, of course. We welcomed half the visitors that we had in previous years. like every business around Madison and around the world, we struggled. In reopening, we lost half of our Welcome Center staff that was afraid to work with the public. We had to rehire, we had to work through quarantines. We were still #1 of 15 things to do in Madison, but that tourism economic impact really dropped. So there was a loss in the growth rate of over 14% in direct tourist spending in 2020. It went down to 42.9 million. That means where, the local tax savings per household before was almost 600, it dropped to 517. Tourism jobs dropped. And of course, our virtual visits, people coming to our website, which is visitmadisonga.com, and really that resource that we use to help get people inspired and engaged and wanting to come dropped as well. Of course, still doing social media reach, still trying to promote when it was safe to do so. And so your CVB here, we did take this time to pause, and you hear a lot about this whole Build Back Better idea. So that was our time. Not only did we take time to safeguard and shore up our budget, we went after grants, we got PPP loans, we did things to make sure that when it was safe to promote travel, that we were able to do it. But we also really, really focused on our branding and our marketing strategy to make sure that we could market the best way that we could, and we had a really consistent, cohesive brand to get people interested and inspired. And that's a lot of what I talked about the last time that it came, with the branding study and that 40-plus page marketing strategy that we worked on. And really just overall trying to elevate our digital presence in particular, because that's how people plan trips now. It's all digital. And that puts us to 2021. So 2021, and the first one I want to start with is that Welcome Center. Our goal is 360 days, and we all know how hard it is to stay open in times like this. But we were able to be open 359 days in 2021, which I think is a great accomplishment, and just showing the commitment of our staff that we showed you in that earlier slide to make it work, through quarantines, through all the just normal challenges of daily lives. They stuck together and they covered for people and they made it happen. And that one day closed, that was my decision, because we had a staff member learn at the end of their shift that they had been exposed and had to quarantine. So we closed down, we had the building sanitized, and then we opened up again the next day so that we could be open to welcome our visitors. Our visitor numbers are going back up. They're not pre-pandemic, but they're getting there. Still #1 of 15 things to do in Madison. That 5 out of 5 bubble rating for TripAdvisor, just showing that travelers love to come here and learn what there is to do in Madison from our Welcome Center, from our team of advocates that share and promote getting people to spend money in our local tourism economy, to shop in our stores and eat at our restaurants and visit our attractions. I wish I could tell you what the tourism spending is in 2021, but that information takes a lot of time to aggregate. They actually just released the 2020 numbers last month. So we won't know what that direct tourism spending impact is until probably February or March of next year. But I did talk to Karen Stapp earlier, and we know that just looking at motel tax, which is of course how we're funded, is doing really well. If it keeps on track, it will perform even or as well or possibly even better than pre-pandemic numbers. And that is really amazing, because at the beginning, everybody really thought tourism would not have full recovery until 2023. So to see that we could be doing just as well is a really great thing to be able to share. And of course, our Visit Madison website, just 4% down from pre-pandemic. That's one of those things we've really been focusing on. I shared a bit with you all the last time I was here. We launched that new website back in spring of 2021, and a lot of times that'll take a dip, just as like Google is trying to figure out what is this new thing? But we were able to invest in it and able to, not just keep up our organic, but keep up our paid reach to drive people to it and get people interested and engaged and wanting to come to Madison. Let's see. And so that brings us to what were we really focusing on now? What is our future goals? So we do planning with our board. It's Patterson Stratop Planning. It was actually donated to us by one of my former board members with Farmview Market, so Kelly Corp. They put all their brands through it, and it's just basically led by a former Chamber of Commerce director, actually. It's a really well-developed platform to think about challenges and goals and opportunities and how to make it work with your staff. And what we determined for ours that we want to focus on is PR and communications, advertising, and content marketing. And so just kind of start with PR and communications. So we know, of course, advertising is expensive, and one of the ways to try to help with that as a small, I call it small town, small budget DMO, a destination marketing organization. So trying to go after that earned media, which is public relations. So we're working with a PR expert who actually works with Explore Georgia, the state's marketing organization, and he helps pitch for us. So we have 10 hours every month where he just pitches us. So he just reaches out to different journalists that he thinks can be interested and has good connections with to try to get them interested in coming and visiting and staying and writing about Madison. Another big thing that we just did is an e-newsletter. We haven't had an e-newsletter before to have that direct-to-consumer marketing touch point. With our new website, we're able to ask for people to sign up for our e-newsletter. And we also have our Welcome Center staffers help with that too. So we launched our very first e-newsletter on National Plan for Vacation Day, which was January of this year. And you can see there on the right, one of our beautiful models, Mr. Mayer's here too. But we gained 257 followers through our website. Those are all new subscribers that want to read our newsletter and find out what's happening in Madison. And we had an almost 50% open rate on our first email newsletter. And this isn't sustainable, that's very high. The average open rate for travel and transportation industry e-newsletters is 20%. So we had over double that number of people opening and reading our newsletter. And our next goal is we want to think about how can we keep our local community stakeholders up to date about the tourism industry and the work the CVB is doing. So we want to launch a stakeholder newsletter that tells that information. And then advertising. So we do a lot of the traditional advertising. We have billboard, we have print. Right now, if anybody wants to buy an ad, I'm selling ads for our destination guide. We print it once a year, 30,000 brochures that we do, and that's completely supported by ads. So that's not money from our budget. That's money from ads that we sell to be able to have that resource to share with people. But we really know, digital is important. So we're investing in Media One, which helps with Google paid search and retargeting. So basically, when people are searching for something around travel that we think we could be a good opportunity for them, we'll show up as an ad. And then, as everybody loves cookies, we also pay for retargeting. So that just kind of follows them around. It's like, hey, you clicked and found out about us before. Don't you want to come and check us out? It just kind of keeps them interested and not forgetting. It keeps Madison top of mind. And in 2021, that served over 10,000 people, virtual visitors to our website. And we're also focusing not just on how many people can we reach, but how can we make sure that it's the right people, the people that are interested in Madison. So we're thinking about duration, which is how long is somebody actually staying on our site and reading our content and clicking through pages. And might be upsetting to tell you, but right now, the average American has the attention span less than a goldfish, so about 8 seconds. So 1.5 minutes per session is what we're averaging, 1 to 1.5 minutes. So that's just really, really showing that people are engaged with what we're putting out there and doing to inspire them to come to Madison. Another big thing is TripAdvisor. This is one of the co-op opportunities through the state of Georgia. And so it's a great investment. That's where people who are thinking about travel are going. This was the first time that we invested in it. And our performance was really good. It was their click-through rate, so the people that saw our ad and said, hey, that's something I want to check out, and actually clicked to it, was 180% above the site benchmark. Our ads were viewed on TripAdvisor a sum total of 700 hours. So that's 700 hours of interest of people thinking, I would like to come to Madison. And then radio, that's something that we haven't tried before either. So iHeartMedia, it's America's #1 media company, so looking at podcast and streamed radio and different things like that, but also more traditional with GPB. And that's something, that's not as easy to measure, but we're trying to do different things to see, hey, what's going to work and what's going to give us the best return on investment. And then my last little part, oh dear. As you can see, I'm a digital expert. Okay. Is content marketing. So what is that? That's a big buzzword in the marketing world. And it's just creating articles that people will engage with, and articles that Google will search and say, like, hey, this is a good article that you should read if you're interested in this. It's those search results. So a big part of our website, with a limited budget, you can only pay for so much actual ads, so you want to make sure that you're really ranking well in Google too. So I think a good example of this is our fall campaign that we did. So we focused on the keyword fall getaway. We know people search for that. They want to think seasonally, where can I go? So we really optimize it for that term, and we got almost 800 views to just that specific campaign. 38% of those views came from our digital marketing with Media One, so that keyword search and retargeting. But right below it, 37% was organic, which means, Google is ranking our site and Google is serving it to people who are searching that term for free, just from the work that we're putting in to do it. We got 24% of the click-throughs through TripAdvisor and 1% through Facebook. And that had a great average time on page. Over 2 minutes average time on page to that campaign, saying people are interested in it, they're engaged in it, they like it, and hopefully they'll consider actually coming. So just trying to think about how can we really market the best and connect the best with people. So that is what we're focusing on. And that maybe wasn't as short as I was hoping, but if there's any questions.
How many visitors do you normally have per day that come into the Welcome Center?
That is a great question. So I'd say on a good month, on average, it's like 1,000 people. Our weekends are definitely the busiest, so like those Mondays and Tuesdays can be slower. Mondays, a lot of the attractions are closed. But let's see, 1,000 divided by 30. I'm really bad at math.
That's about a little over 30 visitors a day, 30 to 35.
Yeah, so.
Good.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Jennifer, I'm a little confused in it. How do you calculate the direct tourism spending? How is that calculated? Because I know, like, from our sales tax generation and spending, actually, Karen, we did pretty well, so that had to come from local spending. But how do you differentiate between local and tourism?
That is a really great question, and I do not know how to answer that. That's actually done, it's by the U.S. Travel Association.
Okay.
So the Georgia Department of Economic Development, they help, I know the USTA created the formula, and they take in like hotel motel tax, they take in sales tax, they take in a lot of different numbers,
Right.
and they calculate it somehow, and I'm sure I can get that information for you. There's another one that's really interesting too, is UGA actually does the travel economic snapshots, so it'll look not just at the tourism spending, but it can look at the whole like local economy, and that one they have he has a doctorate degree in hospitality, but he's created this whole formula, and again, it tracks every county in Georgia, because it's difficult to calculate it. It's a lot of information, and it takes like a year to aggregate it and work through it. But I don't actually understand how the math works, but I can definitely get that information for you. So.
Well, the hotel motel tax is pretty easy to identify, and that, I would assume if people are staying in town, they're spending money in town. So there's probably a pretty good amount of money being spent on tourism. I just tried to figure out how it's calculated.
Yeah.
I'm sure they have an algorithm for that. They plug all that stuff in, and that's way above my pay grade, but thank you.
Yeah, well, and I can get it for you because I know it's complicated, but it's the 2019 Travel Economic Impact on Georgia state, counties, and regions, but I'm sure that they have probably an explainer, so I can definitely get that to you.
Well, it'd be beneficial too, because we could see what they're coming to do, and maybe we can add more of that, we could get more of that in town, so that'd be good information. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Great report, appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay, next we have City of Madison Utility Growth Capacity, Councilmember Joyce.
Thank you, Mayor. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, sir.
The reason I asked that we discuss, I've got this weird feedback here, but anyway, I'll turn my volume down and maybe it'll work. We all have kind of been reading the news, of course, with Rivian and talking about growth and expansion in Morgan County. Speaking with our Director of Planning, she's also says there's quite a bit of increased interest lately in terms of growing the city of Madison and developers that want to do this and that. So it kind of occurred to me that I have some questions about our abilities going forward to supply services and to fairly protect the economic vitality of our city and our present residents. So just to kind of a little bit of background here, looking back over some of the census numbers, we've added about, over the last 40 years, about 1,274 residents. I think this last 10-year cycle from 2010 to 2020 census numbers shows about 11.7% growth. That's the most out of the last 40 years. Prior to that, I think it was 9.5, 5.5 the decade ending in 2000, 8.6 prior to that. So yeah, kind of rough numbers, maybe we're around 10%, I would say, growth per year, going back, a good 40 years, 50 years. And when I look at what is currently expected, we might very well have already reached our 10% growth for this decade. I mean, we've got probably, by the end of this year, I would expect maybe 250 new residents at Canaan Crossing. Vitality either has or is about to have maybe another 100. Madison Assisted Living, maybe 50 more. So that's 400. We've got, I can think of maybe 25 houses, infill houses. Those ones I just mentioned were the congregate living, but 25 infill houses around town I can think of that have been approved, built, or about to be built. So that's about 450 right there that within this year, we're already going to have done. So that puts us, and that's about 10% of what our population is. So I'm not advocating for growth or against growth, but what I want to know as I look at those numbers, if it is accurate that we're kind of at our 10% average already, and we have 8 more years in the decade to go, we're going to have a bigger year. I also might add too that the 4,400 47 that the census came up with for 2020. I'm a little suspicious of that. Between COVID and political census considerations, I'm not sure that's really an accurate number. It seems kind of low. I think when the comprehensive plan looked at forecasting for the growth for the decade, I think we were looking at expecting the population to be 5,000 at this point. And we're good 500 under that. So that number may not be really all that accurate, but at any rate. So as I see the potential for growth and the pressures for growth, I mean, if it fits within our existing zoning ordinances, this council and you and me don't have a whole lot to say about it. But when developers or owners, residents do come to us for variances and zoning changes, then that kind of falls in our lap. So what I really kind of wanted was I wanted to start the discussion about what we can do with a little more specificity in terms of supplying services such as water. I understand we have plenty of water. I would personally like to get a little more hard information of what is our draw permit, I guess, out of Lake Oconee. What are the expectations out of either it's hard labor or Appalachian Creek. I'm not sure which we also get water from. I'm sure that's all regulated by the state and how much we can draw and that sort of thing. Sewer, what is our capacity for handling sewer as we do potentially grow? And another thing that we quite often, I hadn't really thought of until recently, and that is what effect does growth have on our city staff? Our fire protection, which is all, of course, volunteer. Police department, does a 10% growth kind of mean we need 10% more police officers than we currently have? We all know the difficulty in recruiting them, so does that mean we need another 2 police officers by the end of this year or the end of this decade? I'm not really sure. City staff, as we get more streets and more utilities spread out, that puts more load on the staff at City Hall that kind of runs things. So those are all questions that I think David probably knows all these answers. He tends to know way more than me. I don't expect David to really give us all these answers today. I just mainly wanted to start a dialogue and ask David and the rest of you what you all think. What is the best way to get some of that more specific information to us, whether it's in a kind of a one-page report per department, or maybe David can put it together. But anyway, I just kind of wanted to start talking about it because there's no big rush for getting answers today. But in the future, I think we need to really look at what growth is going to do to our city and what it does to our budgets and everything else. That was about all I had, but I wanted to see, I'm sure David has some good comments.
Thank you, Councilmember Joyce, for your confidence. I don't know, that's a broad ranging topic utilities, we are in good shape, and it's hard to predict. You can't dedicate all of your capacity to residential because you'll have industrial and commercial growth along with residential growth. Residential is about, as a rule, about 200 gallons per unit per day. That's a high estimate, but just to give you an example, we have about 2 million gallons a day excess capacity on average out of 3.5 million gallons a day of treatment capacity between the 2 plants. We average about 1.5 million gallons a day all in. That's Georgia Pacific taking about 200,000 a day by themselves. So they're a huge user, but up around 12-13% annually for all the water. So it's not just rooftops. It's large industry, medium, commercial, but 500 residences, 500 rooftops, and this is a pretty broad estimate, but that'll take about 100,000 gallons per day capacity, and that's pretty liberal. That not all going to get close to that as far as usage. People are very conservative, and we're very careful about water usage as well. We've got a good system for tracking leaks. We don't let people waste water. We stay after people to fix their stuff. We fix our own. Water, we're good. 3.5 million gallons a day, and we can go up to 5.5 million. We have Georgia Power approval from years back when Lake Oconee plant was built. We built a 2 million gallon a day plant and had a 2 million gallon per day withdrawal permit from Georgia Power, and Federal Energy Regulatory Commission has to say over that, because when you draw water out of Lake Oconee, it affects generating capacity, and that's what they go by. That's what they'll remind you. That's the reason that impoundment was built. Recreation, house lots, and cities taking water out as a secondary usage, but power generation is the main thing, and that's what drives that. But the Oconee plant is set up to be able to expand to double its capacity to 4 million gallons a day in the future when you need that. That's very expensive. It'll get more and more expensive as time goes by. But anyway, you can go up to 5.5 million gallons a day with another 2 million at Lake Oconee. The Madison plant is about 1.5 million gallons a day. That's pretty much set. That's the Hard Labor Creek withdrawal. That is not likely to increase. Wastewater, we got 1.6 million gallons a day. We use about a little over 600,000 gallons a day for all users. Wastewater per household is a little bit less, but we've got plenty adequate for our current and reasonable growth. The Indian Creek plant is 1 million gallons a day. It can go up to 4 over time. So there's lots of capacity there over time. The footprint and we don't know what the regulations will be. The discharge regulations will get tighter and tighter. Technology will get better. But as the city grows and more wastewater goes to that plant will have to grow as well. And the other plant, the Southside plant, is 600,000 or 660,000 gallons per day. We're probably at 400,000 a day there, maybe a little less than that. So it just depends on what's going around the city. We have capacity, cities, and we are always looking at what the averages are, how much we grow. It takes a lot of residential growth to push the limits on your water and wastewater capacity. But we're in a position to grow if we need to. I would caution against pushing wastewater out much beyond the city limits to let if there's going to be growth, and for wastewater to go out to the edges for just outside of the city, just for developers to get more density, in my opinion, is not a good thing. I mean, you may serve water, natural gas, you may not even annex them into the city, but wastewater, in my opinion, needs to stay fairly confined to where we are, and that'll control itself. Other services, they are what they are. As far as streets, sanitation, police, fire, we just watch manpower, response times, how we serve the public, and if you can go up by increasing in those departments, it's a bit easier because you can add manpower, 1 unit at a time. Wastewater and water, when you expand a plant by 1 million gallons, those are millions and millions and millions of dollars. Those increases are serious. So in some ways, we can expand fairly easily with manpower. Other ways, in utilities, it's much more difficult. But we're in a good position. We monitor and measure everything every day. And we're in a position to we can take a snapshot of how what we do. I think Karen does a nice job every year in the budget to let us know kind of those metrics of what we're doing. We track water and sewer consumption every year, so we've got a long-term and numbers for that, so we can look and see how that's been trending, irrespective of population or housing units. For quite a while in the city, our population and our housing units didn't increase as much. We just had shifts in population. We'd have a neighborhood or a mobile home park that shut down and it would move to another neighborhood. So we had shifts, but now it's true and 100% growth around the city. And I was, when Councilmember Joyce brought up all the things that we've got going right now and all the prospects, and it got my attention as well. We don't think about it until it actually happens. But utility-wise, we're in good shape, and with water and wastewater, we're in a position to grow when we need to grow. We do need to do some studies, some master planning, some rate studies coming up to find out, what our rates need to be going forward. There are rules coming down about lead. We've seen studies, we've seen stories around the country about lead in public water systems. We have lead, what's called lead goosenecks or lead services in our system from way back. It's going to become more and more regulations to say those have to be removed. And that is not an inexpensive proposition, and there needs to be a plan going forward to do it and a way to pay for it. So rates will likely need to go up with that. I was looking at our debt, and within the next few years, I think 8 years, our bond will be paid off, so that is sunsetting. That's $800,000 a year, the money that'll be freed up in that time period, so that will allow for some things to happen. So we're in good shape, but we'll calculate and we will put forward those numbers as the council needs them to plan and go forward.
One question, David, you mentioned not really extending services beyond the city limit lines. Should there be a desire on the part of a developer to put a housing development outside the city limits, without our sewer, they would have to do, well, they wouldn't be able to do wells because that requires too much space. They would have to do their own water treatment facility for a development, is that right?
Well, water already extends out in pretty much every direction.
Yeah.
You have interconnections with all the other cities. So water is one utility, but my emphasis was on wastewater.
Sewer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sewer. And not to extend, because sewer, the capacity is tighter. To expand your treatment capacity is much more expensive, and then it gets a lot more complicated when you start allowing wastewater to go too much farther. And that is a reasonable way to control density on your edges.
Mr. Mayor, I have one more question for David, real quick. If we were to extend the water to outside subdivisions, then they would be able to put a septic tank on a 1 acre lot, and we don't make money on sewage treatment. We make money on water, don't we?
Well,
I mean,
we really don't. You've got to be careful about saying make money on
No, I
water.
don't.
When your rate is $6.30 a thousand, and you probably need to go up now because you've not gone up in 15 years, and the cost of everything is going up over that time. And I don't believe that the city needs to do, you don't need to trust your manager to say, well, we just need to take a stab and go up by $1. I think the investment needs to be made in an engineering study to say, these are the things that are going to happen over time, and this is the way your rates need to go up. And take a holistic look at not just the increasing cost of doing what you're doing, but the cost of doing the things that you're going to be required to do. When you have a system that in places is 110 years old, pipes are that old, services are that old, you've got a lot of deferred maintenance. It's like, if it's not leaking, don't touch it. It's that kind of mentality. A lot of cities, Madison's age, are that way. It's just the way it has to be. But water survives, wastewater survives, we pay our bonds, we do those things, but as far as classifying or qualifying that as making money, I'd be careful to say that. when you're deferring maintenance and you have.
David, just real quick.
Sure.
I'm hearing your point.
Yeah.
My point is, we can sell the water without, and Duke get some revenue
Yes,
from that.
yes.
Wastewater treatment is not really
It's different.
helping us at all.
You're right. That's
And so
good.
I'm saying, if somebody outside needs to grow, we have the water capacity, and we'll have to analyze that as we go further, but, historically, you use 200. When I've done stuff, it's 250 gallons a day for a house. So it doesn't really matter, the numbers are not there. I'm just saying, we could look at, getting water out to them so that the growth will take place in the county.
Water goes to Rutledge, it extends to Buckhead, extends up to Bostwick, out as far as south of I-20 to Madison Lakes, all those developments. Madison Lakes does have some wastewater.
Yeah.
Buckhead Manor has it's all water, and all water septic.
And our natural gas.
And natural gas, that's correct. So wastewater is pretty much limited with a couple of exceptions to what's in the corporate limits of Madison.
And those developments would be good for our natural gas if they
Yes.
would go that way. So
Yes.
that's all I have, Mr.
Yeah.
Mayor, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
I'd like to ask Monica, is Monica still there, back there? We're getting ready to do the comprehensive update, update on the comprehensive plan. How are these things going to affect? I mean, the things that we're going to talk about, I'm sure.
Yes, sir. All those numbers you heard today will be articulated. I gave a little handout. Eric, I'll make sure to send yours via email. It's just a pretty colored version of what you received from Bryce. If you haven't received that email, I know that at least one council member's reported that they didn't get it. I'll make sure today that it goes out to everybody. But it basically articulates a modified timeline from what you heard from me at our previous meeting. So it sets forth the public hearing dates, it sets forth the committee meeting dates, and I just briefly this morning wanted to give you, ask for, so the committee you appointed to the Madison Plans Group last time, we've reached back out to them to see who all would serve, and if you'll remember how that was made up of, it was made up of 7 elected officials, 7 appointed officials who lead your community service groups, and 7 at large. And the 7 at large we primarily use to balance the DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, because our leadership is not as diverse. So I just wanted to point out, based on your list there, that our 2 council people, our 2 elected officials reps on that steering committee group. Last time it was the mayor and Eric Joyce. No, I'm sorry. I elevated you, Eric. Joe DeLetto. And Joe's not here anymore, so I need 1 member from your group to fill that slot. I know that y'all gave the mayor the ability to appoint that, but I figured y'all might want to squabble amongst yourselves and figure out who's going to serve. And then the 7 appointed officials are from the boards. It's either themselves or their designee, depending on their schedules and who can make meetings. And then the 7 at large, I've put 2 new names on your list that I'm hoping the mayor will appoint. Because I'm trying to, what I really need are African-American males, and then at the top of the list, I need African-American females. That's where our DEI is not balanced. So we don't always get that, but I try to make an effort. So if you'll look over that list, we've put some names down there. They're not just reflections of one sector of our community. They're not just a resident and nothing else. We're trying to balance off of the different sectors of the population. So industry, real estate, banking, because I know that I added one gentleman at the bottom of the list that I don't really need somebody from that demographic, but I need somebody from that background. So if y'all take a look at that, make any of your recommendations to the mayor, I sure would appreciate it. There's one date that has changed. Somebody brought to my attention that we weren't quite checking that window. Bryce had counted it off of our adoption date and not off of the public hearing date. So we will have a called public hearing on March the 28th. That'll give me a week to do a draft plan so the public will have something to look at. So that is on your current handout, by the way. But it will be an edit to the email that Bryce sent, so I'll make sure that y'all get that. So we're going to be doing planning fast and furious in March, and so to respond to the mayor's comment, all those data figures that you heard David give this morning, that will be in the growth and economic work session. And we'll be inviting, actually our peers in the room are getting invited to that meeting specifically. They're on the steering committee. That'd be Bob and Jennifer, to make sure we're hearing from their sectors as well. And we'll be looking hard at growth. You'll see all those developments that are rooftops that Eric talked about. We'll be listing those out for you. We're probably going to only, since the data's only 3 years old, we're probably going to only update 3 maps. If there's something else the council wants, I'd love to hear that. But we'll be updating the housing map because we've had new starts on the ground. We'll update the land use map because we've had new things built since the time. And we will probably be updating the natural resource protection because more natural resources have been protected. Other than that, we're using the data that was already collected. So anyway, just wanted to make your comments to the mayor if you've got somebody else you want considered, and if you have African-American female that you know, I really would like to recruit at least 1 or 2 more.
Thanks, Monica.
Any questions for me this morning?
Thank you.
So to clarify, what would you like the council to do at this point would be, first of all, you'd like the mayor we need to appoint 2 more people on the steering committee, or?
I need the mayor to appoint a couple of alternates, and we'll work down the list until, the goal is to have less than 20. We usually use 21, but we've had a new public service board, so we'll probably be 22. And then with staff and present, we end up with a working group of 30. That's about as big as a steering committee as we can get.
So you have a suggestion for who you'd like to?
Yeah, my suggestions for alternates are on that handout for you, and then whoever y'all tell the mayor to appointment.
Where are they, Monica? I'm trying to find them.
I'm sorry, they're in the green column on your,
On this one here?
yes.
Second right here.
The ones in black are the ones that need some change up. Everything else is kind of static.
I got 2 people, sure.
And a councilman, and then you'd like, you need another council member to be on the steering committee.
Yes, my first thought was to invite Eric because he served last time, and we had that continuity of thought because he participated in planning. But my backup thought is need more African-American females, so I was going to see if Carrie had any interest. But it could be whomever y'all decide. It doesn't have to be, it can be whomever you like.
And I guess you asked about African-American females, and if Councilmember Reed is willing to serve, will this council have a problem with Councilmember Reed willing to serve?
Absolutely not. If she
Yeah.
has the time to do it, that'd be awesome.
If it's the council's wish, I'll do it.
Thank you. Thanks, Monica.
My pleasure. And just give your names to the mayor so that he can give me a couple alternates, and we'll fill out the seats, and you will all receive invites to those meetings, but the table will be set for the appointees.
Thank you. City flag proposal?
Just so, if I could, just one thing, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to thank you for allowing so much time for this topic, and I wanted to thank David for really giving me a lot of good hard numbers that I asked for, so thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Yeah?
It's hilarious.
Flag.
I looked at all this on here and I didn't see.
It looks like a flag lesson.
It is a flag lesson, so instead of just throwing out the 2 versions that we've come up with so far, I thought I'd give you a little background as to the why. So some of you might recognize these rules that the, believe it or not, North American Vexillological Association came up with for creating a good flag. So keep it simple. A child should be able to draw it from memory. Use meaningful symbolism, so all the images and patterns and color should symbolize something.
Keep it basic as far as the number of colors, so 2 or 3. Don't put lettering or seals on your flag. And then be either distinctive, completely different than everybody else, or relate it to another flag, so you could, relate it to your state flag or to the national flag. So you have in your packets, so here when they did a survey in 2004, this association of the best city flags, these are the ones they came up with. So you can see that they're both bold and simple at the same time, and I won't dwell on those, but you can see some of the examples of what's considered good flag design. So what we've come up with was, and we being myself and Colleen Hall, are 2 possibilities. So this is possibility 1, and that's possibility 2, and we'll just give you a little bit of the why. So obviously, keep it simple. These are very simple designs. Hopefully, a child could draw those from memory, so I'm taking care of that. As far as the symbolism, this is a map of the watersheds in Morgan County, and you can see right there that Madison sits on a ridge between 2 of them, and that's why our north-south streets aren't really north to south and east to west. They're twisted a little bit, and that's because we run along a ridge line. So you can see how the city streets orient themselves to the way water flows rather than to cardinal directions. So when we were designing the maps, we have that strong diagonal that represents the ridge that creates our particular orientation in Madison. And then the blues represent those 2 watersheds. The upper one is Sandy Creek and the lower one is Sugar Creek. And then we have secondary diagonals, and those of course are Washington and Jefferson, and they kind of lay out what in the history of Georgetown planning is called the Washington Plan, and that's because Washington, Georgia
Later.
was the first one to use it. And you see it in Eatonton and Monticello. The upper one focuses less on the square itself than the second version. So the second version has that gold square in it that very specifically references the center of town, that the original town boundaries were drawn in a circle, this being the center. So that's the symbolism. I think we've covered that. Both flags use a limited number of colors, 3 on the top one, 4 on the bottom. We didn't put our city seal on it because that's not good flag design or any lettering. And we feel that this is a very distinctive flag. Doesn't necessarily relate to the Georgia flag or to the United States flag. Madison is what Madison is. We did have a great question from Jennifer Rosa. She noticed that these colors aren't the same colors of our branding, which is a kind of a dark red and some greens and whites. So we don't anticipate the flag being used on any of our branding materials, that the flag is kind of an official symbol and doesn't necessarily have to use those branding colors, just like our seal. Though right up there it's different colors of bronze, it's usually done in black and white. We don't use our branding colors in that. So, but that was a great question if anybody was wondering. Plus, since the colors on the flag represent the watersheds, it was hard to do that with a red. So that's why we kind of strayed away from that. So just as a reminder, this one's a little more, I guess, organic and modern. So it is only the ridge line, the watersheds, and then the 2 streets. This one is a little more geometric and includes the square. So today you can discuss amongst yourselves and say, we like one of these particularly, move forward to next meeting and approve one, or you can send Colleen and myself literally back to the drawing board if neither one of these find pleasure with you. And include it in your packet. Colleen contacted a company about producing these flags, so you see the cost there. She worked out that at least initially we would want to have 2 outdoor flags. They would fly at City Hall and in front of this building, and you see the cost of those there. And then 2 what are called ceremonial flags, and they would have a fringe on them One would be in this room, just like the national and state flags. Then we would have one that would travel, because we do have a parade of flags at GMA's conference. And now that we have the third vice president amongst our midst here, we really need to represent in that parade. So you can see the costs of those there in your packet.
Ken, I will email that out. It is not included in the packet.
Oh, it wasn't included in the
No,
packet.
it's not.
Okay, I'm
Trying to
sorry.
find it.
Well, I'll just tell you that the outdoor flags are about $300 each, so that'd be $600. And then the custom flags, which include poles as well, are about $230, and so that's around $460. So the total for 4 flags is just a little over $1,000.
Well, Ken, thanks for just making a decision out of 2 flags instead of 10 flags. So
Well, if you ever walked through our office, you would have seen there was a wall that had 10 different possibilities, but we did narrow it down. So if you're going to have a discussion, I'll move it back where you can see the 2 of them together. I can stay here and answer any questions, but
how long will it take for them to?
that is a good question. Colleen, this is a company that also already makes our banners here, so she has a good relationship with them. It'd be between a month and 2 months. So if you passed it at your next meeting, we should have them in hand before GMA.
I have a question for you, Ken, if I could.
Okay.
The colors you've selected on both these, in your opinion, do they come from, quote, the standard color set that's in number 3 there?
And this is more of a Colleen question. I think it does deviate a little bit from a standard color set, though honestly, I don't quite understand what that terminology means, so.
That's a great question,
Thanks.
Eric.
Well,
So I don't know if you just want to chew on this and
what
then.
can we, I mean, we've been talking about this for a long time, and
Yeah.
then you bring it before, so did the council member have a preference between 1 or 2? Flag 1 or flag 2? I mean,
Mr. Mayor, may I?
sure.
Okay, so the one at the bottom, Ken, the gold represents the center of town, am I correct?
That is correct.
So the one at the top, is there not a distinctive place for the center of town, or is the kind of,
That's right.
Why?
It's a little more stylized, a little more kind of organic. So it has the ridge and, in your mind, I guess the square is there at the center, but
Right.
it's not delineated in the same manner that it is in the bottom example.
okay. And
Some of
one,
that consensus that flag 1 or flag 2, put them on agenda for.
Can I make a suggestion? Through the print shop somewhere, can you mock these up? And you don't have to be full size, but maybe 2 by 3 or something to actually print it on paper and display it so that.
Yeah, I'm sure either new
Would that help?
or Metro Copier could probably do that.
I mean, would that help?
Yeah, I think it might, to see kind of more of an approximation of what we're really looking at. That's a
full
very good
scale.
suggestion. I mean, I do like the maps better once I know the explanation of them. I have to say that, which is a shame because it's not like we can't print it on there. Here's what you're looking at.
Right. But we will, whatever flag is chosen and designed, we will have an explanation on our website, so.
And if I may, not to be adversarial, but I'm wondering, what are our city colors?
Brick red and juniper green, but there's a whole palette.
Okay, no, that's fine. I was actually looking on the website as well, I didn't really see
It was
anything.
more driven from the redesign of the logo, letterhead, and business
yeah.
cards.
Oh, okay.
It's
Yeah,
kind
gotcha.
of, maybe this color on the walls, I think is close.
Maybe.
Is that right?
So if you look
They
at,
were chosen from the color palette.
And
I got you.
burgundy.
so if you look at your agenda, that the Madison logo is the
Oh, gotcha.
burgundy.
I don't know how official they are. They're what was worked up and kind of what we try to follow
Right.
for continuity's sake.
I see, I get you. Yeah, these are lovely colors, and I don't, I'm not trying to say we should use those others.
can I ask one more question, Mr. Mayor?
Sure.
So Ken, the flag at the top, I know we were talking about the lines were going at an angle. So why is it not going at an angle with the second flag at the bottom?
I do believe that kind of follows the street line, does it not?
Right.
Not the ridge line? The top is the ridge line, and, you know,
Well, the-
that's pretty much the way
So-
that Washington Jefferson.
Yeah, so the top
top
one
one's-
is actually, like, if you would look at a map of the cities,
Yes.
Washington, you don't always perceive it when you're driving it, but it
Right.
actually kind of curves in like that. So it is more an exact representation of that street. And, you know, it gives it definitely gives it a different feel, whereas the bottom one is a kind of a stylized version of those.
Understood. Okay,
And makes it more geometric.
okay. Thank you.
Anybody else have any comments?
Mr. Mayor, I'll say you asked our opinion. I personally prefer the second version with the gold square signifying the town square, but that's just, I guess, a personal preference.
I definitely agree with Rick. I definitely like the town square.
Yeah. Councilmember Lathan.
I agree with that assessment. I like that. I like the town square being highlighted. But my question, Ken, would be, could you not do the same thing on the top one with the same colors and put gold right there in the middle? I mean, if could that be done?
Sure, yeah.
I mean, that's all I'm saying. Because, as you said, the top one truly shows how the streets run, right?
Yes, yes.
And the bottom is geometrically correct. But other than that, to me, they're both good, but right now, I would go with number 2.
Number 2. Councilmember Wagenhouse.
Honestly, when I first looked at it, first of all, let me say, thank you so much, because I know this wasn't easy to get here, and especially, I don't know, how many did you have up on the walls?
We had a bunch. They were all versions of the theme. I mean, we kind of focused on this kind of idea. I gave Colleen kind of the outlines of it. Originally, I had just because looking at other flags, I had that diagonal straight across, corner to corner. So she shifted it for 2 reasons. One, this is closer to what it actually looks like on a map. And 2, she was afraid that it might hearken to the St. Andrew's cross, which is on a specific flag that is controversial. And
Right.
she wanted to make sure that we weren't making
Right.
it seem like we were referencing that.
Well, at any rate, my first impression when looking at it, when the packet came out, was somehow I was drawn to the bottom one. But I do, with Carrie, I like that it's the form of the top. So I'm really, again, I mean, my initial response was to kind of go with the second one.
I thought Carrie said the second one too.
Yes, you did. No, I'm sorry, but you did reference the top having not being so geometrical. But I think probably the bottom one is a little more interesting.
Good. Is Eric still? Eric, are you still there? The council.
Yeah, I think I prefer the second one also. I'm still not really a fan of the colors, but out of the 2, I would prefer the second one like the rest of you.
Well, that's one thing for sure, when we are at the Parade of Flags, there are all kinds of colors there, Eric. I mean, all different kinds of flags. So if we can.
May I make
Sure.
one more point?
Sure.
The one thing I like about too also, and I'm kind of visualizing maps and is that inside this city limits, how many state roads come through here, and we're in a great location tourist-wise and for attracting folks. To me, that just kind of shows that the center of Madison is really where it is, and I think it pinpoints the fact that we got 83, 278, 129, all of those kind of come to a junction in here along with 441, and I think just about every one of them comes right through the city of Madison.
Nice.
So that's what draws me to number 2.
That's very similar. You see Indianapolis there on the bottom, you know, the motto for many decades has been the crossroads of America. And so that kind of represents, the star itself represents a monument that's in the center of town, but their white lines represent that all roads lead to Indianapolis, but in our version, they lead to Madison. So that's a good point, Mr. Latham.
Yeah. Okay.
So if we could give our city clerks out now to put this on our consent agenda for our March 14th meeting to get this approved, so we can get the flags that are beginning made and have it back to us before June by our convention in June.
Very good.
Thank you.
So if I may,
Sure.
Mr. Mayor, so I guess we don't necessarily need to see a mock-up at this point because
We might have made a
we've gone to the
decision.
second one. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for that suggestion, though, David.
Thank you.
Good one.
Karen?
Okay, I have handed out the second quarter analysis report for this year and a couple of other items that we'll go over in just a second. But overall, revenue and expenses are in pretty good shape. I've included a summary, a 2-page summary with a little bit more detail behind it. And so if you turn to page 2 of the detail, you'll see that general fund expenditures is a little over 55%. But that is because the American Recovery Funds were transferred to a special revenue fund. So it kind of skews the percentage a little bit. So without that, you really be more at 42% for the year, halfway through the year. So that's pretty good. There are a few larger expenses happening in third and fourth quarter, which is mainly our retirement and our property and workers' comp insurance. And so you'll see those coming in the second half of the year. Jennifer had mentioned this morning, and so on page 6, the hotel motel tax, it is doing really well at 98% of what is budgeted. And so we will definitely pass what we budgeted and hopefully get back to the pre-pandemic numbers and hopefully a little bit more than even 2019. We had some old SPLOST funds from a prior referendum, and so those have been spent, and that SPLOST account has been closed, and that was for City Hall renovation. And so those are basically the highlights of the report as y'all go through and look at it. If you have any questions, let me know. I had 2 other things that I had passed out. One is the budget calendar. I always try to get this out in advance. Budget documents have been sent to supervisors. They are working on getting them back to me as soon as possible. They're actually due today, but I think that it'll probably be next week. And then, of course, the city manager and myself will meet and review everything once I compile the budget, and then on April 29th is when I will present it to this body, and then we'll go through, if need be, a work session, a mandatory public hearing, and then the adoption at your meeting in June. And which all those meetings are your regular scheduled meetings. And I also passed out the sales tax report. This is through the end of February. And so you can see that sales tax is up a little over 19% from this time last year. And towards the bottom, I also include TAVT revenue. And you can see as well that we are already $20,000 above the whole year last year.
That's great.
Yeah. Looking good.
Okay?
Thank you so much.
Karen.
And as always, I always say to our council members, when they do start working on the budget, if you have anything particular that you don't understand, and to save a lot of time in our council meeting, please just get an appointment with Karen and just go and talk to her, and that way she can probably.
Yes, and if
There-
there's any issue, or if there's any topics or any items that you would like to see in the budget, by all means, let me know. Thank you.
Could you put a copy of that stuff in my mailbox for me?
Yes, sir, I will.
Thanks, Karen.
I'll email it to you.
Well, I'm not going to look at it until Monday, just so the mailbox is fine.
Okay.
I'm partying too big up here.
You can't work on vacation, can't you?
No, and I can't. This is it. Hey, I want you to know, by the way, that this meeting started at 7:30 Nashville time.
Okay.
No,
Wow,
I was
wow,
almost an hour late.
Commercial deposits, Karen?
Yes, sir. So a while back, the city formalized a residential utility deposit policy. And so we haven't really formalized the commercial side of it. So after reviewing our current procedures and standards, as well as looking at the surrounding areas on how they handle commercial deposits, we drafted this policy for the commercial side. There is one major change in it, and that is where we have made it to where we refund the commercial deposits after 24 months of a good paying history. And that is how we handle the residential. And so we are basically making it a standard across the board that with good paying history for 24 months, which is you are only allowed one penalty, that we will refund your deposit. We won't actually physically cut a check for it, but we'll take your deposit and apply it back to the account.
That's
Good.
And so with residential, the policy states that the deposit is an average of a 3-month bill. The commercial, we've always calculated commercial as average of a 2-month bill. And so that is what the commercial deposits are calculated based on.
Do you ever get any penalties from those businesses, like paying their fees or? have to cut the
There
water off, or-
are penalties assessed on the commercial side, yes.
So you would need a motion in our
You
regular
can get one from the,
meeting to
down there.
do this.
You mind?
Yes, sir.
If we could get a consent, okay, if you
There
put
will-
that on the consent
There will
agenda.
also be, isn't it an addition to the,
Yeah, it will be, so on the schedule of fees, there's only the residential calculation, or the amount that a residence pays, but we'll have to add the commercial calculation to it.
Yeah.
So it will be updated to the schedule of fees.
Fine.
so that
Just-
would just be a regular meeting agenda item?
Yes.
But you would have already heard everything,
You
so
would-
it should be a fairly
It's,
clear.
yeah, just a regular,
It's just-
Yeah.
Couple of things to bear in mind, and Karen can remind me of, deposits on your books, whether they've been there for a month or 20 years, are a liability for the city, because that money didn't belong to the city. It's just been sitting there for all these years. So the minute this is approved, within a week, a month, or whenever it can get processed, there are a whole tranche of businesses that will get money back. That some businesses have been here for a long time, maybe $20, or some of the larger businesses.
$2.50.
$2.50. So they've got that, Karen's already run the report, just like we do on the residential water and gas side, so there will be money paid out to that. The other thing we talked about is we're a bit more forgiving on the commercial side on cutoffs, but this may facilitate, because we're taking a little bit more risk with businesses, but when we see they start getting late and they don't have a deposit, we may have to be a little bit more extreme with, especially if we know what a business may be. It's hard to cut a business off because they can't pay you anything if they can't do something, so it'd be serious. But there's a little bit more risk in this policy, but I think it's the fairest way to go.
Thank you, David. And I don't know if he was in here, but we want to put on the consent agenda to approve the flag that Ken brought before us this morning.
And Mr. Mayor, since
Yes.
you brought up the flag again, Colleen Hall sent me a text because she was listening in. The blues are actually from our branding packet. We just don't use them as often as the red and the green. So that's where the blues came from, Eric.
Thank you so much for clearing that up for us. Thank you.
And Mr. Mayor, if I may, just to clarify, Karen, so when we refund some of the deposits to we'll just be deducting that from their bill, is that correct? I mean, you're not sending?
Yes, so it's not a cash flow situation, it's just mainly you are reducing your liability and receivable.
Gotcha.
Credit on their bill.
Right.
And we're looking to, and I don't know that we've done this, have we been able to figure out a way to put that as a line item on the bill so it's a deposit refund? Have we talked about that? Because a lot of times a miscellaneous adjustment is confusing for customers. They don't know where it came from, or possibly they don't owe for this month and they don't know why they don't owe any money. So we're looking at a way to line it out on the bill to show that it's actually a deposit refund. I don't know that we were able to do that, but
I'm
try.
not sure with the items on the invoice if how
If
much
we
room
can.
we have to work with.
Yeah.
And just one more follow-up question. I guess what I understand is there are some commercial businesses at this point that have not paid a deposit. Is that, I mean, we've gone from doing deposits to no deposits to no.
It's all over the road.
Will those be asked to put down a deposit now
No.
that you have this new policy?
No.
or- Okay.
We'll maintain the status quo. Businesses that are in existence with good payment history will get their money back, and ones that don't pay on time, we'll just hold on to what we have, keep rocking and rolling like we are. Late fees for the city is 10%. And for a bill of, any size, that's substantial, and we'd rather people pay whether business or individual, would rather pay on time. Save everybody time and money.
Mr. Mayor, I need to ask one clarification on the flag. When we said number 2, are we talking about the double-sided one or the single-sided one? That's a question, because there's 2 versions, is that not right, Ken?
Okay, so you would choose, if you chose number 2, that would be the design, and then the outdoor ones are one-sided and the ceremonial ones are two-sided.
Okay, okay, that's clear. I just wanted to make sure that we're doing it. Thank you, Ken.
Thank you, sir. Thanks, Karen. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Karen.
David, cut.
Mayor, could I ask one question before Karen goes there? Does this policy change, do you think it answers the concerns from the citizen who, regarding commercial deposits, that wrote the email to David, and I think we were copying on? Do you think that kind of covers his needs?
Yes, I think it improves basically kind of how we do handle the commercial deposits. And yes, I think it does address some of those issues that he did have.
All right, thank you.
I think, just to add just a short point, I think some individuals, and I'm not going to put this individual in that, but I'm reasonably sure that they would rather just not pay a deposit, to just look at credit history or previous business within the city and just be given the benefit of that. We didn't go that far. We're making this consistent with the residential policy, which you think is fair altogether. Pay bills on time, get your money back.
And we do, because the whole deposit situation is because we do not actually check credit.
We don't do credit checks, no.
Okay. Thanks, Monica. Thanks, Karen.
You're safe to go.
David, contract with Georgia Power Electric Vehicles.
Okay, this, Mr. Mayor, Council, thank you. This is a what's called a make-ready program agreement. All in the world this does is this allows Georgia Power to, or a subcontractor, to replace the power service that is behind the post office. It is power service that has for years supplied energy to the holiday Christmas displays around the square, whether it's the tree or the stylistic displays on the front. This will facilitate 4 charging stations, 2 pedestals with 2 wires each for spaces directly across from Truist Bank. Those spaces will be designated for electric vehicles. We had talked about this and had these plans in the works before this announcement was made some months ago, so this is not related to that. This is a nod to where many drivers are going. This gives an option in downtown for folks who want to visit us and want to charge their vehicles while they're here, and it will be a fee involved. It'll be able to handle a transaction for the energy, so we're not giving it away. They're going to upgrade that service there for the needs of the charging stations. Then another contractor will come in and install the pedestals, and we will owe for that. Currently, that estimated cost is about $20,000 for the equipment and the installation. So I don't think the direct payback from selling energy there is going to pay for that over time, but just to be able to have that availability on our website, and folks, it'll pop up on a map, hopefully. Folks with electric vehicles can come, charge their vehicles, walk around Madison for a few hours, enjoy themselves, and just another convenience. And we're going to see how this one works. Perhaps the city might want to do more in the future in other locations.
David, would that be?
There's no cost to this part of it. As you see in Exhibit 1, this shows what they're going to do, and we'll go from there.
Will there be any kind of signs indicated that we have these downtown, or how will they know?
We'll work on that, Mr. Mayor. Typically, hopefully we can get this to pop up if someone does a search. We'll certainly let all the hospitality, the Welcome Center know that they're there. We will introduce, I'm not sure if there's standard signage that people driving EVs can look at and say, oh, there's a charging station there. We'll do the best we can to make it known that they're available.
Mr. Mayor, may I?
Sure.
Mr. Nunn, how many charging stations will we have?
4.
Nice.
There'll be 4 there. There'll be you could go to 6 in the future, but it's be set for 4 initially.
Mr.
Thank
Mayor,
you.
if I may, I believe, when Chris Hodges first kind of brought this up, or, she wasn't necessarily the first one, but I believe there's an app. Isn't there not an app that will also show,
Yes.
People who are looking for charging stations? I thought that she said there might be an app that.
There may be for Tesla, but a Tesla may be a different, but I'm sure as this thing evolves, I'm sure it can show up somewhere.
Yeah.
Yes.
We'll make sure it gets out there best we can.
Super.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
are current parking regulations adequate to prevent illegal parking on these places, or we need to kind of do an ordinance tweak? In other words, some of the parks there that's not charging.
That's a consideration. We'll just have to monitor that and clearly mark it. And if someone is parked there and they're a visitor, then I think we treat it a little differently than we would if it was just someone overtime parking there. That I kind of watch the spaces now to see how they're used. They're vacant quite a good bit of the time. It's kind of hard to know because we've never had anything like this. So we will adjust accordingly once it's done.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
David, I think a lot of times they're very full when court's in session. I see that on whatever Tuesday it is, but a lot of times those are pretty much open anyway, when I've gone by.
And these are across the street from, on the post office side, there are 5 spaces there currently that are across from Truist Bank.
Super.
Yeah. Thanks, David.
Thank you.
I've asked our city manager, and we looked into being a member of the National League of Cities. Our city of Madison being in the National League of Cities. I don't know how much our council members know about that. But we looked into it, and we met with the president of National League of Cities. He was a former president of the GMA. He is now president of National League of Cities. And it costs about $800, $850 a year to be a part of that. But I think it'd be certainly a great asset for Madison to be a part of this. And I don't think we need a motion or a second. We just need to maybe give our manager the authority to go ahead and fill out the application to allow our city to be a part of it. Y'all have a problem with that?
I'm looking like I'm trying to find one, Mr. Mayor, but I don't. My mind's going somewhere else, so thank you. No, I don't.
Okay, so the members know you would. At our next council meeting, which is the 14th, I think it's time for our council to get back in the prospective place. So we'll be behind the dais at our next council meeting. We'll join David, we'll join our city manager at our next council meeting.
I don't have to sit by Betsy up there, do I? Because she picks on me.
Yeah, but I'll have all the candy, so you don't have to be right by me.
Are there anything else to come before, any questions, anything else to come before our work session this morning? Bob, thank you for being here this morning. We appreciate what you do. Thank you so much. Sure. If not, we're going to go into our call meeting. I don't have an agenda. What's on that call meeting? Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
Sure.
Mr. Mayor, question real quick.
Yes, sir.
Do we have to have public comments?
Not in the work session. but-
Not in the work session, okay. I'm still learning.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
as predicted, since the state has taken over local licensing, I've already experienced some growing pains. I have some applicants outside who have purchased the Main Street Pantry, and they'd uploaded documents. However, I was waiting on some more to come in, and they actually provided them to me this morning. I don't feel comfortable asking their application to be added to the agenda today, but if there's an opportunity at any point next week for a called meeting just to approve their application, that would be great. If not, we'll wait to the 14th because I think they're feeling a little bit of a pinch to get this done sooner than later. But again, when they upload their stuff, I don't get a notification. So I knew it was there, but I didn't know they had their other documents provided until this morning. So no, I just wanted to put that out there. Growing pains, and there will be an application, and if there's opportunity to do it earlier, that would be nice.
We're just be 5 days from our next meeting, 7 days, so, you know, instead of having a call meeting, let's just wait. Listen, I don't know if anybody have time for a call meeting next week or not. I know I have a pretty busy schedule next week. I won't, because Mayor Pro Tem can always pitch in if you need to. But think about it. If we see where we can, we will. Okay. Okay, alcohol violations, are they out there?
Yes, I have Mr.
I'll give you it.
Wade here. Wes, do you want to, I mean, we've kind of already outlined what exactly transpired in October when Department of Revenue came down. Detective Thompson is here.
Come on, microphone. Detective Thompson is here. If you have any questions this morning, he can, go over what happened again. We have Mr. Wade here. Kate, I'm sorry. At college, I always call you the wrong name because I went to college with somebody with a similar name. Anyway, This is the pub-
Do we
or
need to
the,
hear,
uh,
I think we
appeal
heard
hearing.
about the violations before. Do we need to hear them again? If you want to just refresh our minds.
Okay. Back on October 14th, 2021, myself and the Department of Revenue, we get together, usually try to do it once a year. We'll go around to the businesses and do an alcohol compliance check, where to make sure everybody's checking ID. On this particular day, we used a confidential informant through the Department of Revenue, which happened to be a 16-year-old female. What they do is they go into the store, they're accompanied with a undercover Department of Revenue agent that can observe the entire transaction, usually posing as another customer right in line behind the underage. On this day, they went into the Walmart. The 16-year-old female picked up a White Claw, just a single white 12-ounce White Claw. Went to the register where there was an employee. It wasn't a self-checkout. Went to the register, and the employee never asked for ID, her age, anything. Just rang it right up. She paid for it, walked out the store. The Department of Revenue agent immediately notifies us. We went in and talked to the store managers that was there that day, and advised them of the violation. And also we cite the clerk that actually did the sale.
So do you know that Walmart trained that employee about the sale of alcohol? They have to show ID, do you know?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Walmart is the only one of my applicants who is not required to use one of our 4 approved vendors. I think a long time ago when we were looking into all this, they do an extensive training on their end, I think before they even begin work. And when all this was reviewed, the council member at the time and the person in my position felt satisfied that it was adequate training. So I believe that they have to have that before they even start work.
Yes, I do not know their training policies and stuff like that. It's just, like I said, we just go in and do the compliance check. And I will say that we didn't do it in 2020 because of COVID reasons. So this was the first time we'd done it in a couple of years. And this date, we actually did, I want to say like 21, 22 stores and a couple of restaurants. And we got 3 violations altogether. This was the youngest confidential informant that we've ever used before, and also the youngest looking. And like I said, they go in, as long as the employee asks for an ID, they have to say, I do not have an ID. If they ask, how old are you? They have to say 16, or whatever their age is. If they ask for a date of birth, they have to give the correct date of birth. They are required to do that. That's the whole point. And the Department of Revenue undercover agent there with them to make sure that they're not lying or providing a fake ID or anything like that.
So what's the penalty, refresh our memories for this violation, Ashley?
So for a first-time offense,
Yes.
$500 fine and a 7-day suspension of alcohol sales.
Okay.
And then proof of training within 75 days of the ruling. So I don't know how we would do that necessarily. I guess just getting documents from corporate Walmart or whomever that they have received their training prior. But they don't have to use one of the 4 approved vendors.
That they want to maybe try to get away from this particular fine?
I don't, not,
Did they want to pay the $500 fine and the 7-day suspension?
I will let Walmart come up and address
Yeah,
that
you
if
will,
they would
please.
like.
If you would state your
Those questions would be
name.
better addressed to the Walmart rep.
Sir?
Yeah.
Okay. If you would state your name, sir, and
Yes, sir. Good morning, Mr. Mayor.
Good morning.
Council members. My name is Adam Cade. I'm the store manager for your Walmart here in the city of Madison. And I'm not here to dispute the violation. I'm not a lawyer. I started with the company 25 years ago. It's been a wonderful company to work for. It's helped me provide for my family. I feel terrible that this incident happened. We take our responsibility, our compliance responsibility very seriously. We take our compliance responsibility within our community very seriously. Again, the training of all my associates right now is current and up to date. Associate has been terminated who's listed in the violation. And again, I feel terrible that this situation happened. We've taken action to correct it. And ultimately, I respect any decision that's made here today. And I appreciate your time.
Awesome.
So I guess our question to you, are you willing to pay the $500 fine and the 7-day suspension of selling?
I'll ultimately respect any decision that the city and the council makes, sir.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
May I? Since I do shop at Walmart quite a bit, and they always ask for my ID because I only look 19, or they ask for my birth date, and I tell them. So, and I've never had that not happen to me, and I definitely look over 21. But you know, I know that how vigilantly you've tried to do that, and you know, I don't.
Yes, sir.
It may be a young-looking 16-year-old girl, but some of these young 16-year-old girls can. Anyway, I'm just saying, I know that they have been really working hard to take care of that. And so, you know, I would, my question would be, if they paid the fine, could we just suspend sales on 7 Sundays in a row because, or something like that, or does it have to be continuous? Before we've looked at 3 days if they're able to do it on the weekend or something. So that's my question. What have we done in the past, Ashley? You remember?
Typically, the $500 fine and 7-day suspension is served, or for lack of a better term.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
$500 fine and 7-day suspension. In very, very few instances have the suspensions been broken up into like 3 days or 4 days here. I think it's happened twice, but typically you all observe what the ordinance has written for first-time violators, but it's up to you all.
So would you like to break your alcohol sales up, or would you want to do your 7-day suspensions at one time and get through with it?
I would prefer, it really, either one would be okay. To be honest with you, I'm not sure on the details because this is the first time I've ever, in my 25 years with the company, ever experienced this. So as far as the details on what we would be required to do, if it's basically removing everything from the premises, it would probably be better for the sheer amount that we have.
I think you just have to cover it up, is that right? Just have
Yes,
to cover
typically
it
we
up.
just cover it.
You don't have to move it, just cover it up.
Close off that area.
Okay, yeah, it's a whole valley full, so, yeah. Either way would be okay. I could actually contact the corporate through Walmart and see a discussion on that, but if it's time spent, I would probably just prefer to serve our time and do what we need to do.
Just do the 7 days and the $500 fine.
If it's possible to break it up, you know, if we're given a choice on the day, if I'd have to think about that. I'm not real sure.
Patsy?
Mr. Mayor, thank
Councilmember
you.
Wagner.
I feel like, you know, and I appreciate, you know, your cooperation and your understanding of the seriousness of this, and I think it is serious. But I feel like we should stick to as close to the ordinance as we can to avoid setting precedent for anything else, to avoid looking like we're playing favoritism. And, you know, I mean, we all hate that it happened. I know you do. But I feel like we should stick to the ordinance as best we can.
Right. I think maybe last time we had an alcohol here, but I think what we did was it coming up to a holiday and we allowed them to sell?
Well, it was the liquor store,
The
and
liquor
if
store.
it would have shut them down for an entire week
Right,
completely, and I believe that it could have been the reasoning why. That also was a little bit different.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
May I make?
Sure.
I'm not trying to show favoritism to Walmart. I'm trying to show you got a lot of customers that come in there, and you know, and they're going to shop there. And that's the only reason I suggested just cut it off one day. That way your customers, all they have to do is, that's the only reason I suggested that.
Well,
So, I mean,
I think I appreciate Mr. K willing to work with the city on this. And if he's willing to say, let's do the 7-day suspensions at one time, be done with it, pay the $500 fine, be done with it, and you're good to go. If you're good with that, I think our council member.
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Can I call your attention to what the ordinance says?
Yes, sir.
Upon a first offense by the licensee, a suspension for 7 consecutive days of sales of alcoholic beverages, proof of attendance and successful completion by all sales clerks and services, the approved alcohol awareness is class, designated by the city council, and $500 fine.
7-day suspension and $500 fine. If we can get a motion from my council to approve this
So moved.
$500 fine and 7-day suspension for Walmart.
So moved.
Second.
Are there any more discussion? All in favor, show of hands. Opposed is none. Mr. Cave, I don't know when our city clerk will get with you as to when you need to cover the alcohol up and talk about the fine that you need to pay to the city.
Councilmember Joyce, did you vote as well? I wasn't looking up.
He-
You
Okay,
voted.
thank you.
Yeah. Vote. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much. Appreciate what you're trying to do.
Yes, sir. You too. Is there anything else coming from this council? Mr. Carl, you want to give us an update on when our next hearing is?
Sure, and I don't think this is necessarily this is public information.
Right, it's public
so
information.
there's no need to go into executive session. I can report to the mayor and council that yesterday, the corporate deposition was taken of the city of Madison. The witnesses that the city designated were the city manager and Monica out of planning. They were well prepared, they did a good job. The purpose, the only thing left in the case is, according to the judge, is whether or not the authority abandoned the use of the site as a hospital so that it could still have a conditional use, a non-conforming use to pass on to somebody that it's sold. But that would be only if it's sold to another hospital. The judge has already ruled that couldn't be transferred to a drug rehabilitation facility. So all the questions were centered around, what the hospital was doing, whether it's a question of intent, and I thought that the facts, the facts are the facts. They didn't change. So this hearing will come up on the 16th for the authority to tell the judge what it wants to do. They have already notified the judge that they want a jury trial on whether or not they abandoned their non-conforming use of the property as a hospital. So that's the status right now. I don't think there's anything else for us to do other than prepare for the hearing at this point, because this was the last deposition that was going to be taken before that hearing. We've already deposed the, in the first part of the thing, we've already deposed 4 witnesses for the hospital authority. So all of that evidence is, quote, in the can right now and ready to go forward.
Okay. So that's going to be, what, 9 or 9:30 on the 16th? Did he give you a time?
I'll have to look at the order. Let me see just a second. I'll have to pull it up. It shouldn't take but a minute. I have to drill down. I mean, Madison City of Hospital Authority, hospital building. Probably should have pulled this up on my calendar. (9 a.m., 16th of March.
9 a.m. Thank you, sir. Thanks for that update. Is there anything else to come to our council? If not, this meeting is adjourned. Thanks, Councilmember George, for joining us from Tennessee.
You're welcome, thank you.
Thanks, honey.
Now I have another question, Mr. Mayor. This was a public meeting. Do we need to have open for public comments? It's a called meeting. There's nobody on there.
Nobody's on. Is it,
But it is on the, yeah, it is on
There's one person on virtual, and there's one person on live stream.
is it still on?
Yep, they're both still on.
Are they on? Are they a comment for the public? That's what
the, yeah.
You got a comment back there?
Yep. Let me put the phone number up.
Are we doing the, what do you call that, the Pritchard Loop? Are we supposed to be doing any of that today? The Pritchard Loop, you know?
Yes.
So I don't need to be.
I think, did Monica say tonight?
Yeah, the Pritchard Loop, after you guys leave the meeting, you're invited to go over
I'm gonna be out of town too,
to
Frank.
go park at the end of Paul Street and walk across the railroad tracks.
But it's just-
And
it
Green
says
Space
it's not
Commission members will be there to
The hospital authority.
welcome you and.
That's what, this whole,
The other thing.
this is, is
Where
it
you-
the ribbon
when
cutting,
they
or is
do-
it
I think
a?
it's a soft opening.
It's sort of a soft opening at the Pritchard Loop is what is
Hey,
going on
good
this side of this.
Good deal.
No.
Monica brought them.
Absolutely.
From Carl, Scott, and that group, the Green Space group, so they're opening that, as Ken says, a soft opening of the Pritchard Loop.
One thing I should have announced it in the, are we still live?
You're still live. We're about a minute out for anybody to call in, but you can say something in the meantime.
It was suggested, a member of the public suggests that they would be interested in kind of peeping behind the curtains at the City Hall, kind of midpoint of the restoration project, and we're going to do that a week from today, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We're asking for folks to contact us at City Hall if they're interested. We're just trying to get an idea of the interest. We'll have to put a hard hat on them. We'll have those enough to shuffle folks through a few at a time. Got to wear closed-toed shoes to come for safety. But the subcontractors, for the most part, Friday afternoon are off-site. The project superintendent will be there. It's very interesting to see it at this point. I think it won't stay this way very long. They're going to start putting things back together, but you'll get a peek behind kind of the scenes, and we're going to make that available to the public who want to come and take a look. 2 o'clock next Friday, and we're going to push that out to likely interested folks and put it on the website, blast it. Ken will help us do that. Maybe an ad in the paper, perhaps, to make that opportunity available. And I appreciate the contractor's willingness to do it.
Mr. Mayor, time's up.
Okay, time's up. Just one more comment. I forgot to mention a town hall announcement that I've done a town hall meeting here on April 7th. We have someone coming in from BCA to talk to residents about getting help with their rental systems.
Sorry, could you repeat that?
We have someone coming in from BCA HCA.
Uh-huh.
Those were rented,
Oh, got you.
getting out, or in a
Rent a
system.
sense, rental a sense.
6 o'clock. I think it started at 6 p.m. or 7.
I believe it's 6.
6 to 7. Here in the council.
We can announce that at your regular council meeting as well.
And will there be any kind of public notice in the newspaper about that or
There will
anything?
be.
Yes, sir.
Good.
All right, again. Let's adjourn twice.